She was humiliated by her boyfriend for gaining weight, not knowing that a billionaire CEO was about to change everything. The apartment on the 12th floor had a beautiful view of Lake Michigan. Ashley always felt that view made up for everything: the overpriced rent, the narrow hallway, the arguments that kept building up like water boiling in a pot with the lid on. That night, she had made pasta. Not an elaborate dinner, just penne with tomato sauce and basil, the recipe her mother taught her when Ashley was 18 and heading off to college. It was the kind of dish she cooked when she needed comfort, when the day had been long and the apartment felt larger than it should. She was sitting on the couch with the plate in her lap and the book open to the third page, the same third page for 40 minutes, because she was not really reading, when Ryan came in. There was no mood for a kiss or even a hello. He tossed his keys on the kitchen counter with a sound that said everything before any words were spoken. "We need to talk." Ashley looked up from the book. Something in the way he said it, flat, cold, like someone about to let an employee go, made her stomach tighten. She set the plate on the coffee table, straightened her posture. "Okay, what is it?" Ryan stood there, did not sit, did not come closer. He crossed his arms and looked at her with an expression she could not quite read. Anger or discomfort, or maybe both at the same time, combined in a way that came out cold. "Ashley, I have been trying to bring this up gently for weeks, but gentle is not working." "Bring up what, Ryan? How much you have changed. Since we moved in together, you are not the same person anymore." Ashley closed the book slowly. She felt her heart speed up but kept her voice steady. She had learned over the 2 years with him not to let her voice give away what her chest was feeling. "What are you trying to say?" Ryan sighed, ran a hand through his hair, took 2 steps to the side and then stopped, as if searching for the right words. But the words that came out were not right. They were brutal. "You have gained a lot of weight, Ashley. A lot. And I cannot pretend it does not affect me. I tried. I really tried. But when I look at you today, I do not see the woman I fell in love with." Silence. Ashley stared at him for a long moment. 1 second. 2. 5. The apartment seemed to have shrunk, the walls closing in slowly, the air pressing down like lead. The pasta was getting cold on the table. She remembered the first time Ryan had walked into that apartment, 2 years ago, when they had only been dating for a few months, and he had shown up unannounced with flowers he had chosen himself. Not the impersonal flowers from a shop, but an uneven bouquet of different colors he had put together at a market stall. She had thought it was the most beautiful thing. Was this the same man? "You are ending things because of my weight." It was not a question, it was a statement. Said slowly, the way you say something when you are confirming an impossible equation. "It is not just that. It is that you stop taking care of yourself. You do not go to the gym. You eat whatever you want. You stop." Ashley's voice came out firm. It almost surprised her. "You do not need to give me a list of reasons. I got the first one. You can stop." "Look, I wanted to bring this up in a better way, but, Ryan, stop talking." She got up from the couch. She did not cry. Not yet. She walked to the window and stood looking out at Lake Michigan, with its dark, cold November water. Chicago's skyscrapers blinked in the distance, like a constellation lying on its side. She took a deep breath. 2 years, 2 birthday parties, 2 road trips to your parents' place in Ohio. I learned to drink coffee the way you like it. 2 sugars, no cream, even though that is ridiculous. I keep the thermostat at 68 degrees because you run hot. I watched every season of that science fiction show I cannot stand because you love it. Her voice broke. She swallowed hard. "And you are telling me that 2 years were worth less than the number on the scale." "That is not what I said." "But that is what you mean. Go, Ryan, please." He stood there for a moment. It looked like he was going to say something else. Then he looked at the plate of pasta still on the table. Then at her. Then at the window. He picked up his keys from the counter and left. The door closed with a soft click, almost polite, and that softness was crueler than any door slam could have been. Ashley stood in front of the window for a long time. The lake was still there, indifferent. Chicago was still lit up. The world kept turning as if nothing had happened. When the first tears came, they came without warning and without ceremony. They rolled down her face as if they had always known the way. She did not cry for Ryan, she cried for the version of herself that had believed, even for a moment, that he was right. Brianna Miller showed up at the apartment door 2 days later with 2 large coffees, a box of donuts, and the determined expression of someone who does not take no for an answer. "Are you going to open this door, or am I going to stand here singing karaoke until the building manager kicks me out?" Ashley opened the door. She was in her pajamas, her blonde hair pulled up in a crooked bun, her eyes slightly puffy. "You are terrible. I know. Can I come in?" Brianna walked in, crossed the living room, and pulled open the blinds with a decisive pull. The November light came in all at once, raw and honest, and turned to her friend. "First, Ryan is no good. Second, you are going to be fine. Third, eat a donut." "I am not hungry." "Ashley." "Bri, eat the donut." Ashley ate the donut. They sat on the couch and stayed quiet for a while, the way only true friends can, without rushing to fill the silence. "He was not wrong, you know. Do not make me. I gained weight. A lot. I know that. I see it every morning when I get dressed." "Ashley, let me finish. It is not that he was wrong about the fact. He was wrong about what the fact means. I gained weight because I was happy. Because we ate pizza on Fridays. Because I did not need to impress anyone anymore. Because I felt safe enough to stop pretending. And now I find out that impressing him was all he ever wanted." Brianna stayed quiet. Sometimes the best response is to let the person finish talking. "I stood in front of the mirror this morning and looked at myself for about 10 minutes, trying to see what he saw, trying to do the exercise, look through his eyes, through the eyes of someone who says he no longer recognizes the woman he loved. Do you know what I found? What? I am still me, with more of me, but still me. The same eyes, the same way of tilting my head. The same person who knows the Blue Line subway stops by heart and cries at animal documentaries and can never put down a book in the middle of it, no matter how bad it is. That person did not go anywhere." Brianna set the coffee cup on the coffee table and hugged her friend tight. Not the gentle kind of hug people give when they do not know what to say. The kind that says, "I am here and I am not going anywhere." Exactly. And any man who cannot see that does not deserve 1 minute of your time. Ashley stayed quiet inside the hug. She let her friend's words settle. But deep down, in a small and stubborn part of herself, there was still a voice whispering, "What if he was right?" That voice is the worst one. Not his. Your own. The following weeks were hard. Ashley threw herself into a routine that did not feel like hers. Gym at 6 in the morning, salads that did not satisfy her, calorie-counting apps that made her feel like a criminal every time she ate something with any real pleasure. She lost about 9 pounds in 6 weeks, and felt miserable every single day. Brianna showed up on the 5th week with a green smoothie and the expression of someone trying to be supportive, but having serious doubts about the whole project. "Are you okay? I am hitting my goal." "Ash, that is not what I asked." Ashley set the smoothie on the counter, stared at it. "No, I am not okay. I wake up thinking about calories before I think about anything else. I walked past a bakery yesterday and went around the block so I would not give in. I am becoming the most boring person I have ever met." Brianna picked up the smoothie and tossed it in the trash, calm as could be. "Great. Now let us order pizza." "Bri." "Ashley, you are not taking care of yourself. You are punishing yourself. There is a difference." One afternoon, leaving the gym with tired legs and an even more tired soul, she stopped on the sidewalk on Michigan Avenue and looked at her own reflection in a store window. A 30-year-old woman, blonde with a dull look in her eyes, carrying a water bottle like it was a war trophy. What for? She thought. For whom? She did not have an answer, and the lack of an answer was more liberating than she expected. She walked into the store next door and bought a hot chocolate with whipped cream. She took each sip slowly, standing on the sidewalk, the cold Chicago wind blowing through her hair. And for the first time in weeks, she took a real deep breath. It was a hot chocolate, but it was also a decision. Brianna had gotten 2 invitations to a charity event at the Ritz-Carlton. One of her public relations clients was a partner organizer and had handed out entire tables to people in her network. "You are coming with me. I am not going anywhere." "Yes, you are. You are going to get dressed. You are going to feel beautiful, you are going to drink very expensive champagne, and you are going to pretend you are fine until you actually are. That is a terrible plan. All my best plans are terrible. They work. Trust me. Ashley was quiet for a moment, then she went to the closet. She searched for 20 minutes, pulled out a dress, put it back, pulled out another, stared at it too long, put it back, sat on the edge of the bed for a while, looking at the floor. Then she stood up, pulled the navy blue dress from the back of the closet, long with a modest neckline that hugged her curves without apologizing for them. She put on red lipstick, put on the earrings her mother had given her as a graduation gift, 3 coats of mascara, because why not? When she looked in the mirror before leaving, she stopped for a moment. She was not perfect, but she was pretty. She was herself. Oh my goodness. Ash, stop. You look stunning. Seriously, stop before I cry and ruin my makeup. Brianna took her by the arm, and the two of them left before Ashley could change her mind. The Ritz-Carlton was breathtaking. Enormous chandeliers lit up the ballroom. Women in long dresses, men in dark suits, live music from a string quartet in a quiet corner. The kind of event where they serve real champagne and nobody looks at their phone because nobody wants to be the person looking at their phone. Ashley stayed close to Brianna during the first hour, accepting a glass of champagne, talking little, observing a lot. She had always liked watching people. It was the part of her work as a freelance writer that she loved most, noticing details others missed. The woman in the green dress laughing too loud to cover up how nervous she was. The man with glasses checking his watch every 3 minutes. The waiter who knew the names of half the guests. That was why she noticed the man across the ballroom before he noticed her. Tall, broad shoulders inside a well-cut black suit. Dark hair, slightly messy in a way that looked intentional, but probably was not. He was listening to someone talk, tilting his head slightly. The gesture of someone who truly listens, not someone who is just waiting for their turn to speak. And then he looked in her direction. Ashley looked away immediately, took a sip of champagne, looked at the string quartet, pretended to be deeply interested in the violinist. The man in the black suit is coming your way. No. Yes. You are making that up. Ashley Marie Cooper. Look up. She looked. And he really was. He walked over with the calm of someone who had never needed to rush anything. He stopped at a respectful distance. He smiled. Not a flirtatious smile, but the smile of someone who is simply happy to be there, as if crossing a ballroom to talk to a stranger were the most natural thing in the world. Sorry to interrupt. I am Ethan Caldwell, and I know it is completely strange to introduce myself like this in the middle of a party, but I spent the last 15 minutes trying to find a plausible reason to walk across this room and talk to you, and the only honest word I came up with was, I wanted to. Ashley looked at him for a second. Then she looked at Brianna. Brianna was making an Olympic effort not to smile. Ethan Caldwell. As in? Caldwell Tech? That is the one. Though I prefer to be remembered for things other than the company. Like what? Still figuring that out. Will you help me? Ashley let a smile slip, small, almost involuntary. Ashley Cooper. Ashley, it is a pleasure. They ended up talking for 40 straight minutes. About Chicago, about the winter that nobody from out of town was ever prepared to understand. About literature. She mentioned she was a writer and he wanted to know everything. What she wrote, for whom, whether she had been published, what book she was trying to write. Not with the shallow interest of someone trying to impress, but with the genuine curiosity of someone who really wanted to understand. About travel. About the fact that the shrimp at the buffet was, in both their opinions, clearly overcooked. You know what bothers me? Said Ashley, picking up another glass of champagne from a passing tray. It is that this is too expensive an event to have bad shrimp. It is a matter of principle. I completely agree. Bad shrimp at a charity event should be a federal crime. At least a state crime. Fair enough. When the quartet shifted to a softer song, Ethan tilted his head slightly. Do you dance? Absolutely not. Good. Neither do I. But can we pretend very convincingly? She laughed. For real. The kind of laugh you do not plan, it just escapes before you can stop it. That was very cheesy. I know. Did it work? She danced with him. Badly. The two of them danced badly together in the corner of the ballroom, laughing at themselves with the ease of people who are already comfortable, and it was the most fun she had had in months. When they left the Ritz-Carlton at 11 at night, the Chicago wind hit them head-on. Brianna hung back behind them, pretending to look for something in her purse, giving them space. "It was great meeting you, Ashley Cooper." Ethan said this calmly, as a statement, not as a goodbye. "It was great meeting you too." He smiled. He handed her a card, simple, just a name and a number. "If you want to continue the conversation." Ashley put the card in her purse. She made no promises, but she held on to it carefully. A few nights later, Brianna called at 11:30. "So, are you going to call him?" "He already called me." "What do you mean?" "Brianna." "Ashley Marie Cooper, you were going to tell me everything right now." "But he called the day after the event. We talked for half an hour. He wants to have dinner." Silence on the line. The kind of silence that means Brianna was processing hard. "You are interested." "I did not say that." "You did not have to. I have known you for 12 years. When you are not interested in someone, you say, 'I'm not interested' in 2 seconds. When you are, you say, 'I did not say that.'" Ashley lay there staring at the bedroom ceiling. "Maybe I am a little interested." "A little?" "Stop yelling." "I will not stop, Ash. You deserve this. You deserve to go to dinner with a handsome man who walked across an entire ballroom just to talk to you. Go. And Ryan does not exist anymore. Ryan is a lesson you already learned. Go have dinner." She went. Ethan called the next day, then the day after that, and the day after that. Ashley answered the calls with a guardedness she could not quite name. It was fear. It was protection. It was Ryan's voice still echoing through the empty apartment at 3 in the afternoon. "You are not the same person anymore." On the second week, he invited her to dinner. "Ethan, can I be honest? Please, I do not understand what is happening here. I am inviting you to dinner." "I know, but why?" A pause, short, but real. "Because I really enjoyed talking to you. Because you made me laugh 3 times in 40 minutes, which is a personal record for me at these kinds of events. Because when I asked about your book, you lit up in a way that made me want to hear more. And because I thought dinner would be a good chance to find out more." "More what?" "More about you. If that is not too forward." Ashley was quiet for a moment. She looked out the apartment window. Lake Michigan was gray and cold, the kind of gray Chicago makes in January that feels intentional. "Okay, but I picked the restaurant. Deal?" She chose a small place in Wicker Park that served homemade pasta. No Michelin stars, no 3-month waiting list, no sommelier looking down at you. Just good food at wooden tables with candles and little bottles and a jazz playlist that nobody had chosen too carefully. Ethan showed up in a suit but without a tie. She showed up in jeans, a floral blouse, and the leather jacket that had been her favorite for 4 years. It was a test, not a conscious one, but a real one. "Good choice of restaurant. I was testing you. I figured, did I pass? You showed up. You did not run. You pass." The dinner lasted 3 hours. They talked about everything and nothing, about his family in Connecticut, his mother who collected Japanese ceramics, and his father who had built the company from scratch and expected his son to do the same with half the effort. About her family in Kentucky, her grandmother who had taught Ashley to read before school and who still called every Sunday at 10 in the morning without fail. About the fact that they both hated cilantro and agreed that people who like it are suspicious. "It is not a matter of taste," Ethan said with complete seriousness. "It is a matter of character." "Exactly. Thank you. Finally, someone who understands." In the middle of dessert, Ashley put her fork down and looked directly at him. "Can I ask you something straight? I prefer that to any alternative. Why are you interested in me? And do not give me a rehearsed answer. Give me the real one." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Not the silence of someone trying to come up with a pretty lie, but the silence of someone choosing their words with real care. "Because you are the most present person I have met in a very long time. When you talk, you are really talking. When you laugh, the laugh reaches your eyes first. You are smart in a way that surprises me, and you do not even seem to know it. And at that party, you looked at me for the first time like I was just a person, not a name on a Forbes list. That is rare, Ashley. That is very rare." Ashley lowered her eyes to the table. She picked up her wine glass slowly. I got out of a relationship 2 months ago. He left because I gained weight. She looked up to see his reaction. Ethan did not blink. He did not give her a look of pity. He did not say that is outrageous in the tone of someone saying what is expected. He was quiet for 3 full seconds. And then he said, "You lost a lot more than the weight you gained." Ashley did not respond, but she did not look away. The following weeks were strange territory, half enchanting, half terrifying. Ethan was different from any man Ashley had ever known. He was not perfect. He was terrible at answering messages when he was in the middle of a project. He arrived early for everything, which made him anxious when others showed up on time, and he had a very firm opinion about the correct order to build a sandwich that Ashley found completely ridiculous. Cheese first. Always. It is the foundation. Cheese is a topping, Ethan, not a foundation. That is a troubling worldview. You are the problem here. Just so we are clear. But he listened to her, really listened. When she talked about the book she was trying to write, he asked questions that showed he had been paying attention to details she had mentioned in passing 3 conversations ago. And he never, not a single time, made any comment about her body. That was so unusual that Ashley kept waiting for the moment he would say something subtle, some suggestion disguised as concern. It never came. And the absence of it was almost harder to process than if it had arrived. One thing Ashley had not told Brianna at first was that she had looked Ethan Caldwell up online after the event. There was quite a bit out there. Caldwell Tech had grown in 8 years into one of the largest technology groups in the region. There were photos from events, interviews where he spoke directly and clearly without the corporate jargon she hated in business interviews. She had closed the laptop after 20 minutes and decided she was going to find out who he was through his own version of himself, not the internet's version. That was the right call. At the 3rd dinner, at a bistro in Logan Square with candlelight and uncomfortable chairs but good food, he had asked, "What do you love most to write?" Characters who do not know who they are yet. Why? Because it is the most honest state there is. Most people go their whole lives not knowing exactly who they are, and the characters who are still figuring it out are the most real. Are you figuring out who you are right now? The question was too direct for any evasive answer. Yes, I think I am. She picked up her wine glass. After spending time being defined by what someone else thought I was, it is new. Finding out on my own. How is it going? Sometimes scary. Sometimes the best feeling I have ever had. He looked at her for a moment with that attention she had learned to recognize. Complete, real. I think that is going to make a very good book. You have not read a single word. I do not need to. I hear you talk about it. One afternoon, walking through Millennium Park in the biting January wind, she finally asked, "Are you never going to say anything about my body?" Ethan stopped walking, looked at her. "What do you want me to say?" "I do not know. It just seems strange that you never mention it." "Ashley, what exactly should I mention?" She did not know how to answer, and suddenly she realized the absurdity of the situation. She had been waiting for a criticism that had never been promised. "I see you, the way you are, and the way you are is great. I have nothing to mention because I have nothing to complain about." She looked at him for a long moment. The wind moved through her hair. "You're either very kind or very honest. I have not decided which yet. Why not both?" She walked faster so he would not see the smile she could not hold back. The invitation came on a Friday afternoon, via text message, with the casual informality Ethan always had when he was excited about something. "I have a commitment in New York next week, meeting on Tuesday, but I get there Saturday. Come with me?" Ashley stared at the message for 5 minutes. Then she called Brianna. "Go, I have not said anything yet. You do not need to, I know that tone of voice. Go." What if it is too soon? What if it is not? Ashley, you spent 2 years with a man who made you feel like you were a problem to be solved. Let a man who treats you well take you to New York. You deserve a trip. You deserve New York. You deserve whatever comes after New York. You are so dramatic. I know. That is why you love me. Go. She went. Ethan's apartment in Manhattan was in Tribeca. 2 floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the Hudson River, an abstract piece of art on the hallway wall that Ashley did not understand. a refrigerator with more kinds of sparkling water than she knew existed. He insisted on booking a separate room for her without her having to ask, and that quiet detail said more than any speech could have. On the first day, he took her for a walk along the High Line early in the morning, when the park was still nearly empty, and the February air in New York proved that Chicago did not have a monopoly on cold. On the second day, to the MoMA, where they spent 3 hours debating an abstract art installation. "This is brilliant." Ashley stood in front of a series of monochromatic canvases in irregular sizes. "Look at how the light changes depending on the angle." "I see white canvases in different sizes, Ethan. I am being honest. You are not looking at it right. Look at the space between them, not at the canvases." He was quiet for a moment. "I still think they are white canvases. You are a disaster, but an honest one." The debate lasted 40 minutes and was one of the most entertaining she had had in years. On Sunday night, dinner. A table near the window with a view of Central Park. Dishes that arrived in miniature portions but with enormous flavor. The kind of restaurant where the bread is warmed individually and the waiter knows the name of the farm where the butter comes from. "This is ridiculous." Ashley looked at the plate in front of her. "This dish is the size of a coin and probably cost as much as my rent. Want to go to McDonald's after?" "I am not joking when I say yes. Neither am I." They went. At 11 at night, in a suit and an evening dress, sitting at a plastic table at a McDonald's in Midtown Manhattan, sharing a large order of French fries. Ashley threw her head back laughing when a group of teenagers stared at them with complete confusion. The looks on those kids' faces. Absolutely no regrets about this decision. "I loved per se. But this is winning. The food or the company?" "The French fries." Ethan laughed, and as he laughed, she thought there was something very beautiful about the way he occupied space, without needing to be the center of everything, without needing to impress anyone. He was just there. Simply there. And that was enough. The next morning, while they had coffee in the apartment, he was on his laptop answering emails. She was on the couch with her notebook, writing, and for 40 full minutes they sat in complete silence, each in their own world. And the silence was completely comfortable, not the silence of someone who has nothing to say. The silence of someone who does not need to say anything to be present. Ashley looked at him over the top of her notebook. He did not notice. She wrote in the notebook, "Be careful with what you feel for this man. It might be too real." Then she crossed it out and wrote it again. The trip to Los Angeles came about by chance. Ethan had an investor presentation in Beverly Hills on Thursday. On Wednesday night, while they were talking on the phone, Ashley mentioned she had never been to California. The next morning, there was a plane ticket in her name in her inbox. "Ethan, you did not have to, I know, but I wanted to. This is too much." "Ashley, have you ever been to California?" "No." "Then come." End of story. Los Angeles in March was a revelation for someone used to Chicago gray. Palm trees, sunshine, the different smell of the air. Drier, warmer, with something green she could not quite identify. Ashley arrived in the afternoon, and Ethan picked her up at the airport with 2 cups of orange juice in his hands. Why orange juice? Because everyone in California drinks orange juice when they arrive. It is an unwritten law. That is not true. No. But it felt right. She laughed before she even got in the car. On Thursday, while he was in his meeting, she walked alone along Rodeo Drive. She stepped into a boutique out of curiosity, the kind of store where prices are not on the tags, because if you have to ask, you're probably in the wrong store. The saleswoman, a woman around 40 with her hair pulled back in a perfect bun, looked at her with a smile that was trying to be professional and was not entirely succeeding. "Can I help you?" The way she said, "Can I help you?" had a subtext that Ashley knew very well. 28 years of living in a body that did not fit the standard mannequins had trained her to recognize that tone. The slight pause before it. The look that goes down and back up just a little too fast. She could have left. She would have left at another point in her life. Instead, she looked the saleswoman directly in the eye and said, "Yes, I am looking for a dress. Something that makes me feel absolutely magnificent wearing it. Can you help me with that?" The saleswoman blinked, rearranged her smile. "Of course, we have several options. What is the occasion?" The occasion does not matter. What matters is how I feel. She tried on 4 dresses. The first one was nice but did not sing. The second was beautiful but was not her. The third, a deep wine color, with slightly structured shoulders and a skirt that flowed when she walked, she looked in the mirror and went quiet. She did not think about Ryan. She did not think about any gym or diet or number on a scale. She thought, oh, this is how it is supposed to feel. She bought the dress. She walked out of the store with the bag in her hand and the Beverly Hills sun on her face, and something new in the way she carried herself. Not arrogance, not performance. Just certainty. The quiet certainty of someone who found something they had been looking for without knowing its name. When Ethan met her for dinner and saw her in the wine-colored dress, he stopped for a second. Not the second of someone calculating what to say. The genuine second of someone caught by surprise. Wow, I just bought it. I was wondering where you were. Now it makes sense. Rodeo Drive. Good decision. Terrible for the credit card. Great for the ego. The ego needs to be fed sometimes. Someone once told me that self-confidence does not make a person thinner, it just changes the angle from which they see themselves. Who said that? Me. Just now. I think it will become a chapter in a book. He smiled in that way that reached his eyes first. And for the first time in a long time, Ashley did not wonder if she deserved that smile. Ashley's phone rang one Tuesday afternoon while she was writing. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. When she listened, she held the phone in her hand for a long moment. Ashley, it is me, Ryan. I need us to talk. Please call me back. She stared at the screen. Then she called Brianna. Do not do it. I have not said anything yet. You are going to tell me you are thinking about calling Ryan back, and I am saying, do not do it. Bri? Ashley. You are fine. You are better than fine. You have an incredible man who treats you the way you deserve. You are writing again. You bought that beautiful dress in Beverly Hills. Why would you trade all of that for a conversation with the man who told you that you were not worth his love because of some weight? Silence. Because I still have questions he never answered. Ash. I need closure, Bri. The real kind, not the kind I built up in my head. Brianna let out the sigh of someone who knows they are not going to win. Fine. But I want a full report after. She called him back. Ashley, thank you for calling back. What do you want, Ryan? A pause. I saw you on social media. You look different. Different how? Happier? More? Bright? I have been thinking, Ryan, I was wrong. I was very wrong. I was in a bad place, focused on the wrong things, and I hurt you in a way that was not fair. You deserved better. Ashley was quiet. She looked out the window. Lake Michigan was blue today, with April's sunshine that was finally promising something different. She took a deep breath. You are right, I did deserve better. I want to try again. I have changed. Ryan, yes? I am grateful for your honesty today, truly. But what you did was not just hurt my feelings. You taught me that my worth was tied to my weight, and it took me months to work through that. Very hard months. I know, and I am sorry. Let me finish. I worked through it. And on the other side of working through it, I found who I am without anyone's approval, including yours. So no, Ryan, there is no trying again, not because I am angry, but because I no longer need what you are offering. A long silence. You are with someone. That is not the point. I saw the photos. With Caldwell. Ryan, he is a billionaire, Ashley. How do you know that he? Because he looks at me like I'm the most interesting person in the room. Not in spite of who I am, exactly as I am. And I know the difference now, because you taught me what it looks like when it is not that way. More silence. Even longer. Take care of yourself. You too. She hung up. She stood still for a moment, phone in hand, window in front of her, the blue lake outside. She stayed like that for about 2 minutes, just breathing. It was a strange feeling. Not exactly relief, not sadness. Something closer to completeness. The kind of feeling that comes when a story truly ends, not when you run away from it. She had expected hanging up the phone to be hard. It was not. And that ease said more about where she was now than anything she could have written. Then she opened her notebook and wrote, "Closure is not when the other person apologizes. Closure is when you realize you no longer need the apology." She looked at the sentence. She decided it was the beginning of the book. It was late on a Friday when Ethan showed up at her apartment with a pepperoni pizza and the expression of someone who has something on their mind but does not know how to start. "You are acting funny." "Funny how?" "Quiet. You get quiet in a different way when you are thinking about something." The silence changes texture. He set the pizza on the kitchen table and turned to face her. He stood there, arms slightly tense, like someone who has decided to say something difficult and is honoring that decision. "I really like you. I know. No, I really like you in a way that scares me a little, and I need to be honest about that because I am not good at pretending something is not what it is." Ashley crossed her arms. Not defensively, more like someone bracing to hear something important. "Tell me. I have been in relationships before. Serious ones. And in all of them, there was a part of me that stayed outside, that watched from a distance, that evaluated, cataloged, kept the necessary distance to function. With you, that part disappeared. I am just here, completely, and I do not know if you feel the same way, but I needed to say it." Ashley looked at him. "Ethan, you know what happened to me before I met you?" "I do." "Then you know I carry some fears that are not entirely rational." "I do. The fear that someone is going to look at me and see a problem, a project, something to be fixed." She paused. "That fear does not disappear with time. It gets quieter, but it does not go away." "I understand. But you also know that I am not the kind of person who stays still out of fear." "I figured that out quickly. I really like you too, in the way that scares you, in the way that arrives before you are ready." Ethan took a step toward her. She did not step back. "What do we do with this?" "We eat the pizza before it gets cold, and then we figure it out." He smiled. She smiled. And it was just that simple. Sometimes the most important conversations in life are the ones that end with cold pizza and two people who finally stopped pretending they did not know what they were feeling. They stayed up late. The pizza was eaten, reheated in the oven at 10 at night, then eaten again. They talked about everything, about her book, about a project he was working on that involved accessibility technology, and that he described with the same kind of excitement she recognized in herself when she talked about writing. About the possibility of a weekend away in the countryside over the Sumheim. At 2 in the morning, he left. At the door, he turned to face her. "Ash?" "Huh?" "Thank you for not making me wait any longer." She knew what he meant. "Thank you for opening the door, even when you were afraid. Thank you for deciding that this story could be different from the ones before it." It was easy. That is what surprised me. After everything, it was easy. He smiled. He closed the door softly. Ashley stood in the hallway for a moment. Then she went to the window, looked down at the street below, saw the city lights, the constant movement that Chicago never fully loses, not even at 2 in the morning. She opened the notebook, wrote, "Sometimes the bravest thing is not to leave. It is to stay. It is to open the door." She closed the notebook. She went to sleep. She slept well. One June morning, Ashley made an appointment with a nutritionist. Not because anyone asked her to, not because she wanted to lose weight, because something was growing inside her, a desire to truly take care of herself. Not punishment, not compensation, care. The difference between the two, she had learned, was everything. The nutritionist's name was Dr. Sarah Kim. Small, with glasses, with the kind of calm energy that makes you relax without knowing exactly why. She had a tiny fish tank by the window and a plant whose name Ashley immediately wanted to ask about. "So what brings you in today?" "I want to learn how to eat well. But the well I am looking for has nothing to do with weight." "Tell me more." "I spent some time hating myself for the way my body is. And I spent another period refusing to change anything out of pure stubbornness. I think now I want a third option, taking care of myself because I like myself. Do you know what I mean?" Dr. Kim set her pen on the table and looked at Ashley with genuine attention. The kind of attention people fake, but that you recognize when it is real. "I know exactly what you mean. And I want you to know that is the healthiest reason I have ever heard someone give sitting in that chair." They talked for an hour. Not about diets, about rhythm. About what the body asks for when it is tired versus when it is hungry. About sleep. About movement that brings pleasure instead of movement that is punishment. They came up with a plan that had nothing restrictive about it. More vegetables, more protein, more water, more enjoyment in food, not less of anything. When Ashley told Ethan he was quiet for a moment, "How are you feeling?" "Good. Different from when I did this before." "What is different?" "This time it is my decision, not someone else's idea of who I should be. And I am not running from any image in the mirror. I am moving toward something." "Toward what?" "Toward myself. Toward the version of me who takes care of herself because she likes herself." She thought for a moment. "I think that version always existed. She was just a little hidden." He did not say anything. He just took her hand. And sometimes a hand is enough. July brought changes that Ashley could not see because she was living inside them. She had started walking in the mornings, not because the nutritionist had asked her to. Dr. Kim had been careful never to prescribe exercise as an obligation, but because one morning she had woken up early without meaning to, and the day was too beautiful to stay inside. She had walked to Lake Michigan and stood looking at the water for a while, her coffee cooling in her hand, the dogs running in the grass beside her. And she had loved it. Not in a disciplined way, in a real way. It had become a routine. Not every morning. Sometimes she preferred to stay in bed with her notebook, sometimes she had a deadline and needed the time. But when the day was good and the weather allowed, she went. And she came back different, not more tired, more awake. There was a distinction between the two that took her time to learn. But Brianna noticed. "You walk differently. Stop. You are the second person to say that." "It is true. You walk into a room differently now. It is like you stopped apologizing for being there." Ashley sat with that for a while. She was on Brianna's apartment balcony, a glass of lemonade in her hand, the July Chicago sun warm and direct. "You know what I realized?" she said after a while. "That I used to spend an enormous amount of energy trying to make myself smaller, not physically. In everything. In the way I sat, in my voice, in my opinions. As if I needed to prove I was not taking up too much space. And now? Now I take up the space I have. And that is all that is needed." She had not lost weight. The number on the scale was almost the same as it had been in December. But something had changed that had no number. The way she chose her clothes in the morning without first thinking about what to hide. The way she appeared in photos without immediately looking for the least unflattering angle. The way she walked into restaurants without checking first whether the chairs had armrests. They were small details. But they were the kind of details that make all the difference in the long run. The Malibu house belonged to a friend of Ethan's who traveled 6 months out of the year. A wood and glass structure over the rocks, with a porch directly above the Pacific. The kind of place that seems impossible to be real until you are standing in it. They arrived on a Friday. The sun was beginning to set when the car stopped at the entrance, and Ashley got out and stood there looking at the ocean for a solid minute without saying a word. "Are you okay?" "I am trying to take it in. It is a lot all at once. Take your time." They spent the first day almost in silence. The good kind, the kind that needs very little conversation, because the presence itself already says enough. He worked on his laptop for several hours, the screen reflecting the blue of the ocean. She wrote in a new notebook she had bought specifically for that trip, a blue linen cover she had chosen at the stationery store because it felt right. On Saturday morning, she was on the porch when the sun came up. Coffee in hand. The ocean in front of her, enormous and indifferent and absolutely magnificent. She opened the notebook and read the first line she had written months ago. "He left me because I gained weight, and I almost believed he was right." She looked at the sentence. Then she turned the page and wrote the next one. "But what he did not understand was that gaining weight was the smallest of my growths." Ethan came out with 2 strong coffees. He sat down beside her without saying anything for a moment, just looking at the ocean. A pelican flew low over the water. A larger wave than the others came in and went. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months. I think it is the sound of the ocean." She looked at him. "Or the altitude." "Malibu does not have altitude." "Then it is you." He smiled, took a sip of coffee. "What are you writing?" "The book." "The book, really?" "I think so. I think I finally know what I want to say." "Tell me." "It is about a woman who found out who she was because she lost someone who did not deserve to stay." But it is not a self-help book. There are no steps, no recipe. It is a book about how sometimes the hardest thing is simply staying in your own body, staying in your own story without having to edit it to make sense for someone else. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. The September morning sun hit her face sideways, golden and gentle. It is going to be an important book. I hope so. It will. I know this kind of story when I hear it. These are the stories that arrive at the right time for the right person. They were quiet for a while longer. The ocean hit the rocks below them with a regularity that felt like breathing. Ethan? Thank you. For what? For seeing me. From the beginning, before I could see myself. He looked at her. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. You were always there to be seen. I was just lucky to be in the right position. On Saturday afternoon, he took her for a walk on the beach. Both of them barefoot, the wet cold sand between their toes, the sun already low and casting long shadows that followed them like extra characters in a scene nobody had planned. They walked for a while with no destination in mind. Ashley looked at the waves. Ethan looked at Ashley. Can I ask you something? You can. If you could say something to the Ashley from a year ago, what would it be? She thought for a moment. The waves came and went. A seagull landed a few feet away and looked at them with aristocratic indifference. I would tell her that pain has an expiration date, and that what feels like the end is sometimes just the door. She paused, and that she should have bought that hot chocolate sooner. He laughed, and she laughed with him, and there it was. That simple and complicated and absolutely real thing that had grown between them without asking permission, without a schedule, without the kind of guarantee nobody can give anyone. When the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink and a deep purple that seemed impossible to be real, Ethan stopped walking. She stopped too. She looked at him. He was looking at her with an expression she had never seen on him before. Something between determination and vulnerability, like someone who has decided to jump and is only now realizing the height. Ashley. He took a deep breath, ran a hand through his hair, looked at the ocean for a second and then back at her. I did not plan this here. I promise I did not. There is no ring, no music, no flowers. There is just you and me and the ocean and the most ridiculously beautiful sunset I have ever seen in my life. Ethan, let me finish. Please. She went quiet. I have spent my life being very good at planning things. Strategies, companies, meetings, trips. I plan everything. I have spreadsheets for my spreadsheets. And then you showed up at a gala in a navy blue dress, and you looked at me like I was just a person, not a company, not a title, not a name people recognize, and all my planning fell apart. You disrupted everything, and I did not want to put it back together. He took both of her hands. He looked directly into her eyes. I want to spend the rest of my life being surprised by you. I want to wake up next to someone who challenges me and makes me laugh and writes in her notebook at 6 a.m, like the world depends on those words. I want to argue about abstract art and eat French fries at 11 at night and sit in silence for 40 minutes without it being uncomfortable. I want you, Ashley. Exactly as you are. Not as you will be. Not as you were. Right now, you. Ashley felt the tears coming. Not the sad tears from December in the empty apartment, the other kind. The ones that only come when something good is too big to hold on the inside. You said you did not plan this. I did not. But you are proposing to me without a ring on a beach. I am. It is terrible, I know. Yes or no? She looked at him, at the ocean, at the impossible orange sky, at the life that had rebuilt itself so differently from anything she had planned. And so much better than anything she could have written. Yes, he held her. She buried her face in his shoulder and closed her eyes. The ocean kept hitting the rocks. The sun kept going down. The world kept turning, indifferent and magnificent. And Ashley Cooper, blonde, plus-size, 30 years old, a writer in progress, a survivor of a story that tried to make her smaller, stood there in the sand in Malibu whole. The book was published on a Tuesday in October. It was called Whole. One word, no subtitle, a simple cover with a navy blue background, the color of the dress she had worn the night everything began. The publisher had suggested a subtitle. A Journey of Self-Discovery. Or, How I Learned to Love Myself. Ashley had looked at the suggestions, politely declined each one, and sent the cover she wanted. Just the title, just the color. The book had taken longer than she expected to finish, not because she lacked material, there was more than enough, but because some stories need distance to be told truthfully. You cannot write about a fire while you are still inside it. She had finished the final draft on a July night, sitting at the kitchen table with tea that had gone cold hours ago and had stared at the last lines for a long time. Then she had sent Ethan a message. I finished. He had responded in 30 seconds. I am so proud of you. And then, are you going to sleep now? And then, or are you going to reread the whole thing from the beginning? And then, you are rereading it from the beginning, aren't you? She had responded, maybe. Brianna had received the same message and responded, finally, I am buying the first copy. 2:10. The publisher had read the manuscript in 4 days. She had called personally, not sent an email, called, to say it was the kind of book that arrives at the right moment. Ashley had stood in the kitchen with the phone to her ear, looking at nothing in particular, feeling something that took her a while to name. It was deep gratitude, the kind that goes beyond the project itself. Gratitude for having found the words, for having lived the story all the way through instead of stopping in the middle of it. On the morning of the launch, she stood outside a bookstore in Chicago looking at the cover. Ethan was beside her, with 2 coffees. He had learned that she needed coffee before anything else on big days. The ring on her finger caught the October morning light. How are you feeling? Scared. That is a good sign. You always say that when I am scared, because the things worth doing always scare you a little first. That is either very wise or very convenient. Why not both? She looked at him sideways, smiled, took a sip of coffee. Brianna showed up with a box of donuts and the smile of someone who was right from the beginning and has the grace not to say I told you so out loud. My name is going to be in the acknowledgments, right? Obviously. What does it say? For Brie, who showed up with donuts when I needed them most and never let me lose myself for too long. Brianna went serious for a second. Her jaw tightened slightly. Then she hugged Ashley tight. You made me cry on the sidewalk. That is an act of aggression. Deal with it. That night, at the launch event, Ashley stood in front of the microphone and looked out at the full room. Faces she did not know. Faces that had been strangers when she started writing this book, and that now, somehow, were part of the story. Her family that had flown in from Kentucky. Her mother, her father, her 82-year-old grandmother who had insisted on coming in person. Ethan, in the 3rd row with that proud look he always had. She took a deep breath. This book begins with a loss. And it ends with a discovery. But in the middle is the most important part, which is the moment when you stop trying to fit a mold that was never made for you and start asking, exactly who am I living for? She paused. She looked at the people in the audience, at the attentive faces. The answer I found was, for myself. Not in a selfish way, but in an honest way, in a way that only after finding it I realized I had never truly tried before. And that changed everything. The applause started slowly and grew. Ashley looked at Ethan. He clapped with the smile that always reached his eyes first. She looked at Brianna. Brianna was wiping a tear with zero discretion whatsoever, but smiling at the same time, the way only the best of friends know how to do. Later, on the sidewalk in front of the bookstore, after everyone had left and only the 3 of them remained, Ashley stood looking at Lake Michigan one last time before heading home. December again. A full year since the night, with the pasta cooling on the table and the keys hitting the counter. The lake was lit up by the city lights, beautiful and dark and alive. Someone ran past with a dog. A car played a song Ashley did not recognize. Someone in the distance laughed loudly, the sound traveling through the cold air. Chicago was like that, loud and alive and indifferent to anyone's particular drama. And there was something freeing in that. The city had not stopped when Ryan left, had not stopped when she had cried in the apartment for weeks, had not stopped when she had met Ethan or when she had finished the book. Chicago simply kept going, and she kept going with it. What are you thinking? Brianna asked. Ashley was quiet for a moment. I am thinking that a year ago I was standing looking at this same lake, thinking the best part of my story was over. And I was so wrong. Ethan came over with her coat and placed it on her shoulders without saying a word. She leaned into his shoulder. Chicago was cold and loud and full of people going in every direction, each one carrying their own story, their own losses, their own discoveries still to come. And Ashley Cooper was whole, in the right way, the only way that mattered. Her way.